Hey, I'm ZSH Plays, and in 2023 we built nearly 50 habitats on this channel, and today we're going to look at 10 of the best. Let's go! We start with the Flying Fox Forest at San Bernardino Zoo. We built this habitat for the Oceania pack for the spectacled flying fox, and it's based on a real habitat at Singapore Zoo called the Fragile Forest, which is a huge indoor rainforest for flying foxes, sloths, squirrels, all sorts of different kinds of birds, and I really wanted to recreate this for San Bernardino Zoo. But we concentrated just on the flying foxes because most of the animals in the real habitat we either already have in the zoo, like the sloth, or we don't have in Planet Zoo. If we get any more birds or any small mammals or anything like that, I really want to come back and add them into this habitat. But I love how the bats look in here. Managed to hide two bat exhibits in here, one just up by the roof and one down at the level of the guests, so that the guests get to see the bats up close, but you've also got them flying around right up the top of the habitat, which looks really cool, and a pretty successful recreation, I think. Next up is a more exact replication of the red panda habitat at Yorkshire Wildlife Park. I was lucky enough to go into this habitat, which is where this footage comes from, and then rebuild it as exactly as I could in Planet Zoo. So we were in sandbox mode for this one, and just trying to get it exactly like the original, albeit with things being a little bigger than they are in real life, because I really wanted the red pandas to actually be able to use the feeding platforms and all the climbing and everything else. Often in a Planet Zoo, you've got to scale things up to get the animals to use them. But having been in the habitat and looking at this now, I'm pretty happy with this recreation. If you've been to Yorkshire Wildlife Park here in England, let me know in the comments how I did. Next up, it's the Capuchin Adventure at San Bernardino Zoo. This was the first habitat that we built in the Amazonia area, and it's a mixed habitat, as you can see, for capybara and capuchin. And the concept for the habitat was to get the capybara down in the water for the guests to look at, and the capuchins to run above the heads of the guests. So they've got these wires that run all the way through the habitat, and that enables them to climb over the paths. So there's always something going on above the guests and below the guests for a really immersive experience. The habitat features 3 giant fake trees with ropes and vines between them so that the capuchins can climb from the capybara side of the habitat over the path to a shelter on the other side of the Amazonia area. And I get a lot of comments asking how I did it and why it isn't on the workshop. We got null barriers going all the way across what you can see here up to a shelter on the right hand side, and trying to turn this into a blueprint, it was pretty much impossible because we've got a path running right through the middle of the habitat, and paths don't save in blueprints, so that can't go in there, and you'd have to basically build all the rest of this part of the zoo as well to make it make any sense with where the wires are going. There's 2 caiman habitats incorporated as well, and I can't get 3 habitats into one blueprint, which is why it's not on the workshop. Next up is one of my favourite builds of all time, the Barley Gate, also at San Bernardino Zoo. This is based on a real piece of architecture in Bali, which is just absolutely stunning, and I replicated it as closely as I could as the entrance to the islands area of the zoo. It's just a magnificent piece of architecture, really, and the pieces in the tropical pack enabled me to do a pretty decent replica of it. It sits next to the cassowary habitat that you can see here, and it's designed so that you can pretty much see it from anywhere you are in the islands area of the zoo, and it sort of signposts where the islands are when you're in the Australian section of the zoo as well. It serves no purpose other than a visual entrance to the area, and I'm quite happy with that. I don't think it needs a purpose when it looks as good as this. I'm so happy with the recreation of it. I think it's one of the best things I've built. Time for something completely different, the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone from my Planet Wild series. This is a recreation of one of the most interesting places on Earth, I think, in terms of nature and human history. This is like a haven for wildlife now since the disaster, because no people, or very few people, live here anymore. So I decided to recreate the whole area, inspired by a photo I saw of the Przewalski's horses living wild there. So I built a huge landscape for them, and then we added some of the more iconic buildings and landmarks from that area, and then populated it with the Przewalski's horse, wolves, moose, red fox, loads of different animals in huge hidden habitats, so they can just sort of wander around this landscape. Sadly, this is the only episode of Planet Wild that I managed to make this year because San Bernardino Zoo takes up all of my time, but I really enjoyed this one. I think it's one of the best episodes. We climaxed with a fight between 2 red deer. I think it's a really great setting to see them in. It's so much fun making something that isn't a zoo every now and again, and I am planning a new episode of Planet Wild that should be hitting the channel pretty soon, within the next few weeks, so keep an eye out for that. Let's return to the world of zoos for the next habitat, which is the Crocodile Creek at San Bernardino Zoo. This is one of quite a few habitats now that's inspired by Singapore Zoo. This is the gharial habitat at Singapore Zoo. It used to be the saltwater crocodile habitat, and it's saltwater crocodiles I put in here because, hey, they're cool. I was lucky enough to visit Singapore Zoo myself a few months ago, and got to go to this habitat in real life, and I'm pretty pleased with my recreation of it. I think it's pretty accurate. It feels pretty similar when you're in there. I filmed a lot of footage in all 4 of the zoos in Singapore, and my video of that will finally be coming out later this month, so make sure you watch out for that. You can see some absolutely amazing things in that video. It is 4 of the best zoos I've ever visited, and they're all right next to each other in Singapore. From a Planet Zoo perspective, this one was pretty tricky to make when you've got glass, water and paths right next to each other. We got some of the guest seating in as well, so it was a struggle to get it to work, but it was worth the struggle, I think. I think it's one of the most realistic recreations that I've done. As you walk into it here, it really does feel like the habitat at Singapore Zoo, and I built it at such an angle that you can see the Barley Gate in the background when you're looking at the habitat, which adds a really nice layer of depth to it. On to the next build, which is one of the first builds that we completed this year, the entrance at San Bernardino Zoo. This took a long time to build, in part because I had to complete every one of the career mode levels in order to get all the reward statues that I needed to build this animal wall here. This is yet another thing inspired by Singapore Zoo. There's a bridge that you drive under to get into the zoo, which has a big mural of all these stone animals. So I decided to take that idea and use it for the actual entrance to the zoo rather than just for a bridge. I'm really happy with how it turned out, especially the peacock and lion statues. They really came in clutch there for getting this build to look good. Some massive billboards as well, which is something I hadn't used before. Really like how they turned out. Those animal screenshots are actually by another creator called Simply Savannah, who kindly made them available on our website, so thanks again for that. We've got a little fountain here with some capybara statues in as well, just to set the scene. And behind it is the transport hub where coaches for the zoo would arrive and drop off guests. And then there's a car park to the right as well, which we added later. And then we've got this little desert garden in front of it. The entrance is on 2 levels. We will go in now to the transport hub, and then we'll make our way up to the 2nd level so that we can see what's up there, including one of the most popular builds in the zoo, certainly in terms of workshop downloads, which is Iguana Falls. That's part of the entrance, so we'll take a look at that at the same time. But this is where people come in. We've got all the lifts here. The lifts are one of the few workshop items in the zoo. They were built by Shifty, because his were so perfect. I just didn't see the point in spending a day or longer making lifts that probably wouldn't have looked as good as these ones do anyway. So we'll get in here, go up to the top, and then this is the 2nd floor of the entrance. There will be a gift shop in here soon. There should be one already, but yeah, let's not talk about the gift shops at the moment. Let's talk about Iguana Falls instead. This is my favourite ever exhibit build, certainly the one I'm most proud of. It's almost entirely built out of the waterfall pieces, using the sides and the back of them because I really like the texture on them. I think it's got a pretty unique look. Looking at it now, there's not really anything I would change. Still very happy with it. I'm glad that this is the first thing that the guests see when they come into the zoo. Right, on to our next build, the Desert House. This mixture of North African influences and modernist architecture was built for the Arid Animal Pack. It features entirely African desert animals, most of them from that pack. We've got meerkats, African crested porcupine, sandcat, addax, scimitar horned oryx, and the Dharma gazelle. The meerkats are in a little habitat at the front. The porcupines and the sandcats occupy habitats that start outside the building and then go inside the building, which was influenced by a lot of the habitats that I saw at Chester Zoo here in the UK. And then at the back, we've got 2 big hoofstock habitats, which the guests view from inside the building. And this is where the North African influence really comes in with these wall panels here, which I really like. This is based on a hotel in Morocco, I think it was, that I saw. Really like the intricate sort of wood shapes, all made with pieces from the Africa pack, I think. And a really nice view into one of the herbivore habitats here. And you can see the jaguar dome in the background as well, which I like. Definitely deserving of a place in the top 3 in this list, I think. But what is at number 2? Let's find out. It's Hippo Falls. This is one of the latest habitats at San Bernardino Zoo. It took forever to build, but you guys seem to really like it, so it was definitely worth the time spent on it. And the views from the viewing galleries in this habitat are among my favourites in San Bernardino Zoo, I think. Lots going on here in terms of the overwater, underwater, and sort of in-between areas of the water for the hippos, so you can see them underwater in the underwater viewing gallery. You can see them in the water but not submerged from the first viewing gallery, and you can see them on land from the last viewing gallery. Here's one of them swimming around now. The habitat was inspired by Fort Worth Zoo and Cincinnati Zoo, including these hippo footprints running along the path here. And to be honest, it'd probably be number one on this list in terms of the builds I am most proud of. But for sentimental reasons, you'll see what the number one is in a second. And I got some brand new footage of it for you as well. It's the Flamingo Pool at San Bernardino Zoo. This was episode 1 of San Bernardino Zoo, and that series has really blown up my channel this year. It's been amazing to watch it grow, and it's all because of this zoo, so I had to pick this habitat as my number one. You can see it here back when this was the entire zoo, but let's take a look at it now with everything else that's been built around it. It's taken almost a year of building to get it to this stage, but now that you can see the Palm Cafe in the background, you can just about make out Africa there. We've got Australia when we look at it from this angle, and then we've got the entrance and the rest of the water terraces when you look at it from this angle. It's been amazing watching the zoo grow up around this one little habitat that started it all. I don't even know how many flamingos we've got now. I think we've got maybe 21 in here. I do periodically release them so we don't end up with too many. And here you go. This is the habitat in its current setting. In 2024, we will be finishing San Bernardino Zoo, but it is going to be quite some building before then. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you very soon for a new episode. Bye.